Show starts in 1 minute. Good evening, folks, and a hearty welcome to our drive-in theater. We have a wonderful evening's entertainment lined up for you, one that will provide several hours of pleasurable relaxation and diversion for you and your family.
Like 9 out of 10 film stars, Raquel Welch uses Lux Beauty Soap.
Well, no, I like to be a woman and a man to be a man, you know.
We hope you'll make this a weekly visit. You love the tasty array of snacks we have to offer. Bring your friends. There are always wonderful new pictures to see. We hope you have a wonderful time.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Longhouse, the weekly show for the sensible centrist. And what a week it has been in my life. It's been slightly stressful, but it's also been quite nice because summer has arrived finally to where I live. What about you, Ludwig Path?
Yeah, it's very summery here as well. So I'm actually trying to just adjust myself to the heat. It came a lot quicker than I expected.
Yes, it's been, well, I guess it's more correct to say that winter lasted a long time this year. And so summer sort of came creeping up, and all of a sudden you're lying there at night sweating.
Yeah, it's like you had a few weeks of high energy with like just the right temperature, and then I'm back to kind of this kind of oppressive fighting against
Back
the
to the
temperature
depression
again.
mode, yeah, as it's supposed to be. That is the true Nordic spirit, of course.
Of course.
Now, being that summer is getting here, I think it is appropriate that we have with us Leo Borealis, who, among other things this week, are going to teach us how to build a grill. But it's a bit more than that, and it's about sort of building the grill in your heart, so to speak. Welcome, Leo.
Thank you very much. We're having our flash summer here as well. I mean, it's been cold, and now it's 22, 23 degrees every day, and all the pollen is coming at the same time.
Yeah, that's been a thing too.
Yeah, you know, you go and wash off the car, and the next morning it's yellow.
It's the worst. Yeah.
The grass, the birches, and now the fucking pines are at it. So it's coming like in large misty clouds once the wind picks up. So it's lovely. Nature is really doing its best to kill all the people who are allergic to pollen.
Yeah. No, actually, my wife has never had an issue with pollen, but this year she had a reaction for like the first time in her life. So she's praying that it's a volume thing and not a developing allergy.
Yeah, it's actually kind of common when it comes out so much at once here that it's not that it's like an allergic reaction. It's rather like mechanical irritation of the mucous membranes in like the throat, in the nose, and in the eyes, especially in the eyes, because they're kind of sensitive. Yeah. And you're getting the version of someone is throwing like a fistful of flour in your face every morning.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So she's been having a wonderful time the past week. Anyway, before we get going with our scheduled programming, I have promised something to our new members, because that is something we have started doing. So let me just get this going here. Here we go. As I said, I promised something to our new members, and membership is something that is a new feature on the channel. So thank you everyone for tuning into this week's episode. And as you know, every week we live stream this show for your listening and your viewing pleasure free of charge. But there are a few, let's call them noble souls among us. A few men of exceptional character and heroic will that have decided to offer up a whole $3 a month. And with this offering, they are granted exclusive member status and privileges. Privileges such as members-only videos, community posts, emojis, name badges, etc., etc. The Giga Chads gracing our channel as members so far are, and let me put on the effect here, Burkarl, Nordhuger, History, Philosophy, and Lore, Tom R., Falling Outside the Normal Moral Constraints. Thank you so much for your support. If you want your name in this message, press the subscribe button down below and become a member of this channel for the low price of a cup of coffee a month. Okay, that's that. Yeah, let me see them Luddic Path emojis in the chat. Very good.
So now we know, right? We've been searching for the soul aristocracies.
Yes.
We need to know how exactly do we become aristocrats of the soul, and we don't become that through doing MMA or bodybuilding, and we don't
do
it by voting in
doing
elections.
Like Nathan CJ Hood here and becoming a member right now.
Exactly. This is the solution. We finally found it. You buy the base product, you become a member, then you're an aristocrat of the soul. Okay. We don't have the Evola diplomas yet, but they will come. Just stay tuned.
Of course. Okay, with that out of the way, Leo Borealis, I mean, you rightfully cornered me in our private chat about sort of the Anglification of the Longhouse over the past couple of episodes. There's been a lot of English influence, which I think it is time we purge a little bit. So you have something you've called How to Grill Under Pressure, a Kali Yuga strategy guide for the online right, is what you called this. How would you like to introduce this topic?
Well, that was the pitch, at least. Let's not oversell it.
Well, it's more a discussion, right?
Yeah, the problem is now that with this epic shill that you have been getting on here,
I've become an Anglo myself. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Yes.
the first trifecta of the politics of somewhere for nowheres. That was the first headline here. The end of that was beware the perfidious Anglo. But now I feel like we have.
I resisted the shilling for a year, Leo. I'm sorry. I couldn't hold out any longer.
Nah, it's fine. It's fine. I'm just kidding. Gotta get it out of the system, eh?
Nathan has gifted 5 memberships to the channel, which is a lot of the people watching right now. So again, thank you so much, Nathan CJ Hood. He was actually a guest on our show 2 weeks back. So if anyone is watching and would like to check on that after we're done here, just go to the videos, the live tab on the channel. Okay, let's keep going.
Yeah, Nathan is a good egg. I mean, and he does good content for his channel. So again,
yeah,
Anglo
he does.
Content, but still.
Yeah, but I would like to say it's the good kind. It's the spiritual Anglo content.
Perhaps. Speaking of perfidious Anglos, I mean, if you're gonna really go into this, I think we have to invoke one of the kind of the meme characters that has been used a lot, and that would be Jonathan Bowden, who has a lot of memorable quotes. And one of his better quotes that I really like is "Kill your inner liberal." And
Right.
That's really where you have to start, really, because this might be like a kind of like catchy, right wing kind of quote, but it's really is if you think about it a little bit closer. It is really the alpha and omega of the entire thing, because as Bowden says in the speech where he lays this quote out, how can you be right if you're still a liberal at heart? I mean, most of us were brought up in a liberal environment by perhaps liberals, and that kind of runs deeper than most people might be comfortable to admitting.
Well, how about the idea that I don't remember who's saying it. It's probably someone who's. It's either someone like Academic Agent or it's someone who's been on his show, but it's the notion that you cannot embody the spirit of a different age. I suppose how would one go about killing your inner liberal if that's not possible in their view? I mean, now that might be an Anglo idea to begin with, right?
Yeah, I think both yes and no. I mean, it's of course this is kind of reaching back into the idea that you can't go back, which is true, because no matter how much you try to recreate something that was, it will never be the same, because it can't be the same. The people are different, the times are different, the basics of the entire structure that you must build upon is very much different.
You're a bit low again, Leo. I'm not sure if anything's changed.
I haven't changed it. Have you changed my audio settings? I just have to.
No, they're at max.
Okay. Now,
if you just try speaking a little bit louder.
Yeah, I'll lean into the mic. Okay, Lomberg, is this
that's
better?
a lot better. Yeah, this is a lot better.
Okay, I might have leaned back a little bit too much then. I'll just have to.
Maybe
like this.
You have to hold the mic to your face.
Yeah. It might be something with this fucking computer. And Lomberg, I have bought a new mic.
He does. Yeah, he specifically bought a new mic.
Let's see. I'll just lift it.
All right, but leaning into it seems to have worked.
Okay, I'll just hold it like this because the stand that it's on is a little bit low, so I have to. Because of course you have to buy a fucking extension to get it on a proper height. So does this work, Olros?
Yes, but just remember that just try not to lean back or speak. Keep speak up a bit.
Yeah, no, I'm holding it up a little bit, so.
Yeah, it's a lot better.
Yeah, great. What a helicopter mic! What the fuck?
No, we're good. Okay, we're talking about killing our inner liberal.
Yeah. Yeah, but the let's see, where was I? Yeah. The you can't go back meme. The thing that you have there is that. And I lost my train of thought. Thank you, Chad, for totally derailing me.
Well, while we try to get that back, I'm going to pull up Falling Outside the Normal Moral Constraints super chat and just engage in some more Anglo action here. Channel members are the Vanguard AA talks about. I'm not sure I would go that far.
You can be a part of the network of tens.
Yeah, for $3 a month. Yeah. You're part of the network of tens.
Yeah, that's some Turley level stuff right there.
Yeah, we're getting there. We have to out grift the.
Well, I see in your notes here that we have the two top points are sort of the politics of the somewhere versus the nowheres, and the killing your inner liberal is the top point.
Just
here.
Yeah, maybe if I could try to poke a little bit around in this conversation, because it made me think about the Dark Knight again, the Christopher Nolan film with the Joker quote. It's simple, we kill the Batman. I was like, yeah, it's simple. We kill the inner liberal, but if it's so simple, why haven't we done it already? Like, who is this inner liberal character? Can you explain that for us? What are we trying to do here?
It's actually a quite good analogy. No, essentially that is your impulse to be liberal, to meet people halfway and say that people are like that. We should be nice to people and blah blah blah. And say within a specific context, it's to rather say that no, all the immigrants must go. You would rather something says, yeah, but there's some that are kind of good then. and they work hard and they really try and stuff like that. That's the inner liberal. It's the thing that you can't hold a position. You can't be allowed to have an ideology, a doctrine, rather. Everything must be negotiable. Nothing matters really. So, and since nothing matters, everything is equal. And since everything is equal, then why should you have a house?
So where would you draw the line between like pragmatism and sort of like appeasing your inner liberal in that sense? Like, if you're saying that you believe that, well, let's use the idea of immigration as you brought it up. Let's say that your big based idea then is remove all immigrants, right? And then the inner liberal in you is saying, well, some of them are good, right? That first position isn't really anywhere near tenable in the society you live in, right?
Oh heavens, no.
Right. So how do you get into a position to reach the based version without? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, what is the pragmatic stance on this point? Where do you say, all right, I'm gonna have to accept that there are immigrants until there aren't, right?
Yeah, I understand. No, the thing here is that it's kind of important here to use the Eva's little term there of riding the tiger, in the context that this is not an external thing that you do. It's internal. That also means that you don't go along with things just to go along with them. But that doesn't mean that you should put yourself at unnecessary risk or do something that is blatantly detrimental to you or to your family. You shouldn't do that. That's just stupid.
Right.
So I have a follow-up question.
An inner dialectic.
I love that word. But I have a follow-up question here as to the way that you're describing the liberals. So in your mind, what is the difference between being a liberal and being a moderate? Because the way you're describing it, it makes it sound like you're really kind of more railing against political moderation, or being, what the normie thinks of as a centrist, not the sensible kind, but like the kind of, both sides type person who it's not necessarily, like, in my mind, they're not ideologically liberal necessarily, but they're just always compromising themselves into the grave, essentially.
Yeah, no, I think here is also again a difference of how we view the different terminologies. When I when I think of liberal, or when I say liberal, I don't mean the moderates, because the moderates are fucking libs too. But how would you say this?
I mean, the center right is just as much liberal as the center left, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just they're just Marxists at a different speed. But the thing is that there's a difference between being moderate in a sense externally, because you have to protect yourself, but you still try to affect change within the political sphere that you're operating in.
I had a discussion with a colleague the other day who's interested in philosophy and politics, etc. And maybe this conversation can help draw the distinction a little bit. We started talking about like democracy versus monarchy, etc. And he introduced the idea of monarchy, saying that, of course, in theory, a monarchy would probably be better if you have a good king, right? And then he followed up with, but what happens when you don't have a good king, right? And I told him that, well, if you're going to extrapolate, sort of hypotheticals here, what's going to happen with the bad king? And we had it going for a while, and it ended up with me trying to tell him that, well, if you want to understand how people looked at this outside of our own sort of sphere of existence in the post-war era that we live in, post-World War II era we live in, you're going to have to say that I'm willing to roll the dice on a bad king because I believe the system in itself is better in the long term, even if that means that I have to die. That's literally the world you have to live in. And until you accept that, you're not going to understand it. Does that make sense? As sort of like basically being the liberal in him, preventing him from ever accepting monarchy as a mode of being?
Yes, I would say that is a very good example, because I have had that discussion with again and again, I would say, with normies. And the thing is that they realize, and they are willing in some settings to be frank about that. Well, yo, shit's fucked, and that this might be a better alternative. But it's like the moment that they are entertaining the thought, they have to slide that but in, and then they have to fabricate the most outrageous scenarios that are not very likely, so that they can.
Yeah, but what if he kills everyone? Well, I mean,
what if out of a sudden this guy who is kind of mild mannered and kind of constructive turns out to be Ivan the Terrible? It's like, yeah, that's not kind of likely, but then that's the kind of.
But that's the thing as well. You have to be willing to say, even considering, you have to have sort of the the moral balls, I suppose, to say that, well, even when once in a blue moon you get Ivan the Terrible, that's still a better system than democracy, right?
Yeah, and I mean, you will have that for maybe 2 to 4 decades, and then it's over, and then you'll probably get a much better one, because the pendulum, even within monarchies, the pendulum tends to swing, and the monarch that comes after a bad king tends to learn from his mistakes, and the reasons that he isn't back on he isn't still on the throne, and so on. But therein lies also the idea that I put forth, that all negotiation is negation. Once you're starting to do as they are here, start to break apart that which is what you want, what the good parts, and then try to make sure that vision lives side by side or intermingled with another vision that are fundamentally opposed to each other. Then you negate your own position, and in that negation, you're also giving up a little bit. I mean, you're feeding your inner liberal, saying that maybe it was right, maybe I shouldn't say this, maybe I shouldn't do that. So, and that also, because I think there's a deeper thing here, and it's that humans are deeply mimetic things. I mean, people tend to think that they are, logical and objective and driven by reason, and we are, in small bursts of 10 to 15 seconds, once or twice a day. The rest is mostly just pure emotion, instinct, and feeling, really. And much of it is just usual. It's just you will do the same thing today that you did yesterday, and you won't change much about it. So that entire idea, the scientism that is deeply embedded within modern liberalism, is frankly just a lie. It doesn't really matter.
Well, I mean, you're back to the old sort of 80-20 rule, really, right? It's or if you want to go Robert Conquest, everyone is conservative about what he knows best, right? I mean, for everything else, you're pretty much just operating on heuristics, right? Which is, spend as little as possible to energy and thought on it to get by.
Yeah, mostly. I mean, you won't get with most people, you don't really need more than conquest. That's it. I mean, that's like 50% of humanity. They don't even go beyond that. There are no extra, no trimmings. Apparently, that thinks my mic is very bad.
Have you? Okay, just to make sure, you have like selected your new mic as your mic in StreamYards, right?
Yep. Let me see here. Settings.
Because yeah, as he said, it sounds like it sounded better before, but now it sounds like it's back to like the old mic.
Aha! Does it sound better now?
Oh yes, that is that is a different world.
Okay, I know what's happening. It was fucking hell, Walrus. When you were superseding my things and changing things around. It plopped back into the old one.
I didn't touch anything. I can't touch your input. I can only touch your volume.
Yeah, but that must be fuck's
right,
sake.
Chat. This is the last time anyone can call Leo a boomer for his mic. It is fixed. We have spent money on it and much time fixing it.
It's been reborn. We've killed his inner boomer. Tech savvy has come out. You've witnessed the birth of the new Leo.
I found the drop menu.
Here it is. Okay, very good. Now we can keep going.
Oh wow.
So what we're saying, what we're basically getting at here is the idea that sort of the inner teachings of our truth regime must be at least questioned and most likely crushed in terms of how you look at life, how you try to live life. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you should, purposefully harm yourself by painting a target on your back.
No, absolutely not. I mean, that is stupid. You should absolutely never paint a target on your back unless there is, gains to be had. And so in that manner, we're back into the Evolution Ride a Tiger. I mean, do this for yourself, do it for your friends, but perhaps not much down the street doing it.
Yeah,
it's not a conducive way of.
You don't want to go. You don't want to go there, right? You don't want to play the villain character.
But no, I agree. I have a weakness in that. Sometimes I get a bit, let's say, what's the word? Impatient. I get a bit impatient with the things that I see around me that I really just want to get removed. But and it doesn't work long term. Right. You have a point here called "Beware the Perfidious Anglo." Do you want to go into that?
Yeah, and to the English in the chat, I would say that this is probably more of the perfidious American, but the Anglos are at it too as well. I mean, it was like the no names mentioned, but a person we all know had an interesting thread on Twitter, and well, yeah, you know what we said about that, Walrus. It's like they can't turn it off. And
the Americans or the English?
The Americans. The English do this, but in a different way.
Yes.
The Americans
they can't turn off the, and this is, we're going to talk a bit more about the transatlantic DR divide when we have Cows on, who is from America and has moved to England. But I have for a long time, not in a mean-spirited way, but sort of laid my my thoughts to rest on the idea that on these things, on some of these things, the Americans will never understand our criticisms, and they will never be in a headspace to understand them and to accept the criticisms, and that's just how they are. And I'm not saying that to like dunk on them. It's just kind of like a recognition, right? We're different, and this is one thing that's It's not going to bridge.
Yeah. What was I said? I mean, this is for the Americans. This is like the one universal trait that the nascent American ethnogenesis has managed to cough up in the short term. That is, they have been gestating into their new ethnos, and the sad to say, I mean, the corporate shill is that thing. They just can't stop it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of their identity is tied up to brands, right? Unfortunately.
Yeah.
And there's a whole other, bunch of problems that they're facing. In terms of culture and in terms of, a sort of like overriding monoculture that's trying to wash away, or has been washing away, every local culture since sort of the dawn of the Union, right? So it's sad to see. It's sad to see how that has been sort of twisted into anger and hostility when someone points it out, I guess.
Yeah, but it's the same thing. I mean, it's a little bit sad, but I can also understand it's what you say it, it's a sore point, because somewhere they realize that this is perhaps not very good. But then again, it's so ingrained, so the response becomes like an unconscious defensive response. It becomes aggressive. It becomes hostile because. But then it becomes about this, and Europe pours this and Europe pours that. So
the meme I made was the one where the guy in like the well and the peasant, right? There's a guy who's like a peasant, and he's like, well, maybe we should change society, and then usually the guy says, and yet you participate in society, right? Curious. I made that one with the peasant saying, maybe America isn't the greatest empire to ever exist, and the guy in the well says, I'm gonna fucking bomb you.
Yeah, I remember that one. Yeah,
which is subverting the expectation, but that's kind of what the Americans do, right? They skip they go to, well, you're part of the American empire, and then you say, well, I don't want to be, and then they say, well, then we're going to fucking bomb you. And you're like, okay.
What do you do? And in the next next sentence they will breathe out that they are that they don't like the American empire, and they hate Washington.
Right. They agree with you, but they still hate you because you said it, right? It's very strange. Okay. So, but you did write Anglo here. Is there anything you feel that let's take it a step further? Is there anything you feel that the continental Europe or the northern Europe culture has or does that is incompatible with the Anglo sphere in terms of the dissident right or the sensible center?
I would say that there is probably one thing that I've seen both when interacting with our good friends in England and some continentals of the Western continentals, not the Eastern continentals, or the Meds, different thing. But that is that the Anglos tend to have this kind of thing, a bit like the Americans, but for them it is, that liberalism. I think that's why people like Carl Benjamin, Sargon, he just can't get go of that fucking English liberalism, even though he knows it's a psyop. It never really, like he's been trying to articulate, it never really existed like that.
I've always seen it as the English having a level of practicality to them that sort of overrides any metaphysical, let's say, nirvana, right, or utopia. So they'll always go for what's practical in the moment, and then post hoc justify it, as many people do, but just as a culture, rather than literally just hunker down and try to search for something perfect. And I feel that's reflected in their constitution, really, which is almost like just a lucky stroke of history, right?
Yeah, but that might also be one of the problems. I mean,
well, yes, that's what I'm saying. That can lead to issues.
Yeah, but it's like we discussed last week, I think, in our private chat about, or it was the week before. Anyway, how really the thing with America, and in some cases also England, that is really hampering them, is the fact that they have constitutions. And they keep bringing them up especially the Americans. My constitution, this, my Second Amendment, that. And it becomes like they use it like a cope crutch, saying that we have this and therefore we have rights. Motherfucker, you don't have rights. Never had them. Doesn't work that way. But since they have that kind of, and especially kind of English common law and how long, and they will always talk about fucking Magna Carta.
Yeah.
And the fact that they have had this for so long means that they're it's like it's a blindfold. They're just like, oh, but we have this and we have to defend this and blah blah blah, and that kind of binds them from going at it at a different angle. It becomes very hard for people, both the English and the Americans, to say that, yeah, you know what, this little paper that we have here, let's just burn it up. It doesn't mean anything, and it hasn't helped. If anything, it has been damaging, extremely damaging, because it prevents people from doing anything. So
yeah.
I think that is something that, especially about the Anglos, that's the real problem, because they always have that kind of crutch of they always can fall back at that idea.
But what I'm hearing here as a sort of common denominator between the Americans and the Anglos, when you talk about killing the inner liberal, it's really a kind of universalism, isn't it, that the inner liberal has, especially with the concept of rights
from Christianity.
And, inalienable rights of the individual. It's really that concept that is sort of a bit of a roadblock to certain political solutions, and particularly when people have internalized it to such a degree that it's sort of impossible to think around it, because no matter what you're thinking about, it's like, okay, we can just move these people here, we can ship this over there, build a wall here, but what about the rights? What about this person's right to do that? Or if there's just one person whose rights are going to be stepped on, then that's out of the picture. So you just end up with a sort of paralysis where nothing really works, and all you can do is just complain about the people who are effective in politics precisely because they break these rules, right, and laws.
Yeah, they manage to find the loopholes that let them act as kings, right? I mean,
or just redefine what the rights mean in the first place,
or just redefine them.
Yeah, the sort of left's MO.
I mean, sovereign, right?
Because I've been like retweeting James Lindsay so much, so that's why I'm just in that headspace right now. When you talk about someone who needs to kill their inner liberal, I mean, holy shit, he's probably the guy who has the biggest inner liberal that I've ever seen, and it just makes it impossible for him to actually do effective analysis, even of the project that he's trying to do. Because James Lindsay is this kind of like defend more constitution guy, and that's it. Always comes back to like more constitution, and he will write like these long articles about like the woke left. That's it sounds like, I tweeted about this. It sounds like me in 2016. A cultural Marxist. The cultural Marxists have taken over the universities, and they're going to undermine the Constitution. But he can't, realize and say like the Civil Rights Act, for example, has undermined the Constitution. A lot of these, liberal fictions, in a sense, like civil rights, have tremendously undermined the Constitution in so many ways. But because he has like this,
like the idea that if I just put the right words together in the right order, like some kind of spell, right, like some sort of witchcraft, I can sort of like legal jujutsu society out of this problem. When I'm not saying that the solution lies in violence, but the solution lies in a different way of looking at it. It lies in a different way of conceptualizing it, right? Outside of that mode of thinking.
Yeah, and meanwhile he's been doing that. I mean, globalist NGOs, no names mentioned. We love the nation of Israel here. Have funded and put in place like 2,500 district attorneys and lobbyists in state legislatures and getting every fucking house of cards stacked with their cards. But my constitution.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, I'm thinking more about like killing the inner liberal as a sort of process that's necessary, comparable to, say, I mean, if you're someone who has a certain talent in sports and you really want to get to the top of that sport, you might have to like shed certain assumptions and ideas that you have about yourself. The first is like the sort of beliefs that you have about how good you can get. And the other one is sort of how much time you can put into it. Because let's say you have some kind of talent to be a rugby player, a football player or something, and you can get there, but you need to maybe sacrifice family time, you need to sacrifice holiday time, you might not be able to indulge in the hobbies that you want and so on. But if you think about it, sort of like this is a part of like a complete lifestyle. I have to have the family like this, or I have to have these hobbies. I need to have a balanced life, or a sort of work-life balance. You're never going to be as good as you could have gotten. So they will have to go through training, maybe like sports hypnosis, coaching, and so on, just to rid themselves of these ideas. I think the same for people who try to get far in business as well. Like there's certain ideas about money and ownership and so on that they might have to just kill inside of themselves. And that's also what I'm thinking about when you're saying killing the inner liberal.
Just borrow money. Just borrow it.
Yeah, just borrow money. The idea, like, okay, there's you shouldn't borrow money, for example. Is sort of, well, you see many of the people who get rich, they just borrow insane amounts of money, and they have to make themselves comfortable with borrowing sums that are like astronomical compared to what the regular person thinks is a lot of debt. And I think it's the same thing with killing the inner liberal, is that you have to in certain ways train yourself to not have to constantly think in terms of constitutional rights, thinking in terms of individuals, and thinking in terms of let's say some of the more progressive things, like thinking in terms of tolerance, for example. It's also a tempting thing, or equality, that these things have to be there. They absolutely don't have to be there. And it doesn't mean that you go full like sort of third worldism, but don't constrain yourself to these particular solutions, because then you can only recreate what's already in the system.
I fell out for the last 20 seconds. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it was a good rant.
No, I lost really... connection. Can you guys listen? Oh. You can hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, very good. Yeah.
No, I think, Ludwig, you're actually on really much on point there, because that's kind of the thing that it's really about. It's it's letting go of all these presuppositions that you have, and realize that, well, if we want to do this, what's holding us back? What is holding me back? What is holding you back? Is it really good to? I mean, it's. I'm also here to get back into the meta-political situation that we're all swimming around in, and that is, we should also say that this isn't easy. It's a long process. It takes time. I'm not done with it. You're not done with it at all. But I don't think anyone really can be fully through the idea in this time and age. I mean, because you are constantly inundated and propagandized with this. It's the water that you swim in, and it's, well, what can you do? So the idea is also that you have to not be. You have to realize that it's not like you. Let's take an analogy of you're going to start to go to the gym. You can't start by going in there and put on like 150 pounds on the bench and just go, oh, I'm going to go 10 by 10 reps, 30 seconds rest between 10 reps. That you're just going to, you're not going to go anywhere. You're just going to hurt yourself. And then you're just going to, okay, that wasn't so smart. And then it's going to take you a year to get back into the gym. So you kind of have to ease yourself into that mindset, and once you're there, you have to start with little things. It's like, okay, I'm not going to affirm someone who says something shit libby and stupid, even if they're your friends. I just go don't engage, something like that. No, start small. You shouldn't start to go full beer house putsch on your friends when you're out drinking beer with them. It doesn't end well, and they don't understand what you mean. Even if you mean well, they don't understand
Yeah,
that.
but that's why that's why you shouldn't do it, because they, as I said before, you have to be literally in a different sort of like paradigm of thinking. And it's so difficult to introduce this to people if you don't just hand them a stack of books before you do that.
Yes, and to be honest, I mean, I think a lot of the conversation seems to be taking the form of like, how can we talk to normies about our ideas? But I'm not even sure if that's like the right approach. I may even that might be just like a sort of inner liberal presupposition in a sense that
Yeah,
Well, that's
you
just sort of the
yeah.
thing that most people would be faced with on a day-to-day basis, right? That's the first thing you can do, is stop talking to liberals about this stuff, really.
Yeah, I mean that's also one of the thing that people have a little difficulties with, and that's the idea of of vanguardism. That it's very, most people don't they don't belong there. They can't handle it. It's not for them. And the liberal instinct, no, everybody has to be on board. We have to do this together. And it's like, yeah, no. And that's probably really the hardest thing, because you want, it's a your instinct is to take the rest of the people that you identify as your friends and family and bring them with you where you're going. That's the basic pack instinct. You want them, you don't want to go alone, but in this case you kind of have to, because part of vanguardism is that you don't have the finished solution. You're now trying to work on the solution, and until you have the solution you can't go back and bring people in who aren't ready for it or who can't handle it. And there's no reason. The only thing that you will get for that is less friends and a lot of confused people who doesn't understand what you're saying. So it's again, it's detrimental. You're just going to hurt yourself for no gain at all.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree, and I do think about it like, again, I go back to like James Lindsay, with not just James Lindsay, but the stuff that he has made a career out of talking about, which is really the quote unquote woke left, or the cultural Marxist left that spawns out of the new left. And I don't want to do the same kind of dialectic history of whatever the hell they've been doing, but I think some of their political success has also been rooted in their ability to quote unquote reprogram themselves, or kind of destroy. For them, it's not like they're inner liberal, but they talk about destroying kind of their inner capitalist, right? Their what they think of like this, or as these sort of capitalist assumptions about how society has to be, that it has to be kind of deprogrammed and go through this kind of dialectical process. And I mean, books is one thing that we talk about, the importance of reading books, and reading books specifically for the purpose of reprogramming yourself, particularly things that are written before 1945 for reasons that we've explained earlier. But my follow-up question is, okay, what else? Like, aside from just reading the books and talking about it, is there something else that can be done that is sort of a almost surefire path to quote unquote deliberalize an individual?
Yeah, that's actually takes us, that's a good segue, because that takes us into our next subchapter. Because funny thing, the most people that I know have been self-radicalizing in that vector, if we should use those words, are people who start owning land. Because I know a couple of guys who were the worst fucking shit libs you could really know. They're, I mean, not bad people, but it's just 100% stone cold boomer truth, civil rights, by proxy. And then
Renters.
they started, yeah, and then there's just like they had dads or they had grandfathers who were hunters and stuff like that, and I'm gonna do that now because they're kind of in that social strata. So what they did was they kind of invested, they had invested whatever money they had into their own land once they started hunting, because they realized that if you want a lot into the hunting teams, You must own land that team
Yeah.
operates in, or you're just here as a guest, and you're not gonna be allowed to be a guest for very long. Come along a
Yeah, and
couple of times.
you don't get the good
Yeah.
stuff either. Like if you manage to
No,
actually
no,
get
you.
lecture something.
Yeah. No, you don't get anything.
Yeah.
Because then it comes out of lots. But in any case, so once they started doing that, and spending a lot of time in it, and I was kind of surprised when they started saying think that they would have, like, been clutching their pearls at 2 years prior. And since they started that, I think one of them took over, like, his grandfather's farm. Before that, he was like, "Nah, I hate the countryside. I hate farming. I'm gonna keep being like a real estate developer and blah blah blah." And now it's like, "Nah, sold the business, putting it all into the farm."
Yeah.
Simple
Well,
as.
I mean,
and he's gone full fucking North FC.
just as someone who
no
owns, property in the most basic way, basically a house, right? And a small piece of property outside of that, it forces you to think more long term. It forces you to think in a different way, right? It forces you to live more in tune with the seasons, for example.
Yeah, because even if you don't start thinking like that,
it's gonna make you.
In autumn the leaves fall.
Yeah.
They need taking care of. And
things are gonna start falling apart if you don't. So
yeah, pretty quickly as well. So you're forced into a completely different mindset. Doubly this, I mean, you have a house and a lot around it. That's still quite a lot of work. Imagine then when, I have some farmland. I have, say, a couple of acres of forest, and you think, it's just forest. It doesn't need managing. Oh yes, it does. And
yes,
you're
yeah.
legally obliged to take care of it. You can't just let it go. There's a plan, and you have to follow it, or else the government is going to come. And so yeah, you have a forestry plan here that you haven't been keeping up with. So what's up with that?
Yeah.
So but the thing is also that you also come into not only here, and here we come in with this more long-term planning, and that is one of the points that I sent over you, is that the wages remains in the rented cages. And that's also the basic of wealth formation, is to get out of renting, because people say, I just pay this and I pay that, and they think it's not a lot, because they in their mind they think like, if I want to get a small house somewhere, or an apartment even, then they see the bulk sum of that. But what they don't realize that they are already paying for that.
Yeah.
I mean, I can just take
the money is not going to the house. It's going to some landlord, right?
Yeah, and they get nothing out of it. The thing is that when I could take like an example of me. I own my own home and so forth, and people who have that I know that rent, who live on say more or less the same conditions, same centrality to the town center and stuff like that, more or less the same standard. They pay more than I do, and then
right.
And that's like for total everything, like for maintenance, power, loan, the mortgage payments on the loans, the upkeep to the what do you call it, the homeowners association, and all of that.
Yeah.
It's a lot less, and part of that is also within the mortgage. I mean, half of that is money I pay off, so I pay it back to myself essentially. So, and it is also in a sense a store of value. It's also a point of financial stability, because if ever something happens, the bank is going to go, but you have this, so we'll sort something out. If you don't have anything, then you're just going to go, well, Sucks to
Yeah,
be
you're
you.
screwed.
Yeah, you're absolutely
But
screwed.
I think the problem here comes, and let's go all the way back to one of our first episodes, Luddic Path, where we talked about, especially in Norway, the freedom machine, right? That incentivizes young people to move away from their hometowns, their parents, their place of being, to take up loans, to basically rent, right? For anywhere between 3 to 5 to 8 years at some points, and then get into a situation where you probably have to rent some more if you want to get a job in a city where they want to take your strange degree, right? And a lot of pain, even though, compared to somewhere like the US, the numbers are not even close to as astronomical. Like the cost of going to university here is like 1/10 at least. So the hit isn't as bad, but I mean, you're still locking people into this sort of slave system before they've even started.
Yeah, I mean,
again, can I just ask a couple of questions as a sort of follow-up here? So, I mean, I appreciate, real estate, and I appreciate the kind of long-term thinking, but I still imagine that even if you do own your own house or you own your farm, that kind of person could still end up defaulting into these sort of like more constitutional values, right? Because they'd just say, well, I'm going to protect my constitutional right to property, for example, which is also a sort of liberal thing in a sense. So I mean, I see it as a sort of, it's a cure for a lot of this kind of like bugman optimism and this kind of stupid immaturity that you see with people. But I'm not sure if it's like owning property is like this kind of magic deliberalizer pill. So I don't know what you think of that, Leo.
No, I would concur. I mean, there's no magic solution. What I'm saying is just it's a good way for shaking shit libs that doesn't necessarily be spiritual shit libs, but they just adopted the position because everyone else does. Shake them out of it so that they can. It's about imposing a different mode of thinking. It doesn't mean that the trap isn't still there. It's always there, but it makes it easier. I mean, because you also have to think about it this way, because everyone is, bottom of the fucking hole, and to climb up, to even get someone to try to climb out of that hole, it's difficult. Home ownership essentially puts you on the first rung for free, because you do a thing and then you're just there. You don't really know how it happened, and now you must deal with it in an immediate personal sense. Now it's not someone else's problem. It's not abstract in that way. Now it's your problem, and it's your problem yesterday. So
yeah,
that's all. That's also what I say. That's all that it does.
But I would say what Luddic Path is sort of hinting at here is very true, especially in Norway, where most people's approach to these things are very much part of our spirit, I would say. We have a lot of home ownership. I think Luddic is saying in the chat here that 80% of, I think that's 80% of all sort of what's called like house units in Norway are privately owned, and so like the rest, like 20%, is being rented, apartments or houses. But what it sort of comes out as in the people and sort of as the liberalism of it is pretty much that people are, this is my property. As long as, I'm left alone, I'm happy. That's kind of how we work specifically. Just, leave me alone and I'll be,
I mean,
I'll
even
do
with
my
the,
thing.
like, internationally comparable very high rates of home ownership in Norway, that it hasn't led to this kind of ultra basedness. It hasn't led to Evolian populations or whatever. I mean, you have other countries with much lower degrees of home ownership that are more what we call like based or fasci or whatever. So
Well, yeah,
there's a problem
but
there.
the leave me alone mentality works when the culture is, well, when there's a monoculture, right? When there's and I'm not just thinking of, nationality or race, as long as the somewhere culture is the monoculture, and that the nowheres don't dominate, right? Or the, let's say, an international culture comes in and takes over, right?
Yeah, I think I sort of see what you mean there.
So when people in the big cities are basically belonging to the international class, they're belonging to a different culture than everyone else. And then, we're back to Oren McIntyre, the those who want to be left alone versus whatever, right?
Yes, I mean that is a typical problem, and it's. I mean, yeah, you can spend your time like looking after your property, and I think it's very healthy. It's very good for maturation, good for the soul. But yeah, again, I question it as a sort of deliberalizing machine.
Yeah.
Sorry, I couldn't find my button here. I had a boomer moment again.
Well, at least the microphone is working, so everything is
Yeah,
forgiven for now.
yeah. For this time,
in the eyes of
at
the
least.
chat, at least, I think they're just happy to be able to hear you.
Yeah, more or less. No. I mean, how would I say this? Misunderstand me right here, Lodik. It's not about that. This is not. It's kind of like it will manufacture basedness. It can't. I mean, you can't get someone. I mean, you can try to farm potatoes on a sheer mountainside, and it won't fucking grow. There's nothing. There's no fertile soil in it to take root. It just doesn't work. And you just have to realize also that that's half to 60% of any population, really. But then also you have the as you say, the comfort factor, and the I just want to be left alone. I mean, people who perhaps have that potentiality also tend to exhibit large amounts of I just want to be left alone. So but they would have that anyway. So I don't think it's not really, if we would say so, a net negative. It's as you say, it's healthy, but the point isn't that it is a based machine making machine, or in any sense of it, because it's just one cog of making that kind of thing. Because when you look at the thing is that home ownership or owning land in itself doesn't really create that kind of milieu. You have to have the rest of it, and that is that you also have to have, in a sense, family. You have to have that sense of belonging. You have to rather you have to have a society. I'm sorry to say, but you really have to do that, because the atomization that exists, that you say, the freedom making machine of university and long education has really broken up that kind of intergenerational family life that used to exist, and there's fragment of it still existing. And the problem is, in some sense, that property ownership here is really about recreation. Think about the housing markets in Sweden, Denmark, Finland. They're more or less the same. Villas tend to look kind of the same. You have the same kind of areas, suburban formations that you see. That are I've been in both Norway, Denmark, and it looks more or less the same. Standard villa area. None of those are really conducive. They are not made for large family groups. They are made for 1960s atomized people with 2 people with 1.5 kids, most of their family living in another city or out in the country. That's what they are made for. I mean, if you would say that the baseline technology is not fit for purpose, it is not made to produce those kind of outcomes. It does something completely different.
It's very true what you're saying here. And I mean, I wanted to do, I've talked about it many times, of doing it like a real estate stream in the future. This would be one of my talking points, right? That there's so much of the real estate that's available in Scandinavia in particular that's made, as you say, in the 1960s and the 1970s, and it's made particularly for the kind of like 1 to 1.5 child, within the mindset of like this kind of population bomb, factory worker stuff, where people are afraid of overpopulation, and they want to, you're not going to do one child policy deliberately, but you want to make certain nudges within the system and kind of manipulate the outcomes in a way so that you're incentivizing lower birth rates through things like architecture, for example. And of course, there's also other more subversive sides to the real estate parts, like the lending aspect of it, the mortgages, and the cheap mortgages in particular, which is, it creates the incentive to really move away from the family, and it puts people in, like you said, this kind of renting mode. You have a mortgage, the 30-year mortgage, you're sort of in this kind of monthly payment mode anyway, even though the economics of it is better, but it's not true ownership, right? Because you can live in a house most of your life, but it's the bank that owns it. It's not you, really. So something to think about there.
Well, that's true, but it also, it takes up your time and your energy and all that stuff. It's part of why some people say that if you already have a family, you're not really useful to to the right of the future, other than your children, maybe, right?
Yeah, that's also a point of it. But a point of it that as well always say is that it's not all even the areas. It's, think about the most standard house that you have ever been in. I mean, I have seen dozen of them, and you have probably also seen the 1.5 floor typical. It's the full
my house,
full ground floor, and and an A-frame on top of it. Brick, probably the lower part of it is probably brick or wood paneling, and the upper part is a basic ceramic tile roof.
Oh, it's not that basic, but
but something like that. If you think about the floor plan, how is it really, because you have to think about the house as a piece of technology. It's supposed to do something. What does it do? When you come into it, it's a small, cramped hallway. Most houses from this, made in the 60s, 70s, 80s. And then directly you have probably a small, a bathroom, but not a bathroom, just with a loo. And on one side you have into the kitchen that is probably a little bit too small. And then you have this huge fucking TV room.
Yeah. Well, not mine specifically, but I've been in a lot of those.
Yeah, you know the thing. And then you have like
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, and then you have like 3 small rooms up and one huge, quote unquote master bedroom that is probably a bit too large, because you're having a couple of, you just sleep there. You're not living in there. And it just eats up space for everything else. And then it doesn't really have any of these other spaces that you might need. You might have a garage, but you can't, you can't have a woodworking bench and your car in there as well.
No.
Very clever, not large enough for both. So
no, that sucks, because I had to, like, the way I did it, and it works like kind of badly. What I did is that I made a bench that I can sort of like lift up and attach on the wall in my garage. So I can like have the bench out or not, depending on whether or not I'm like working it, but I would have to move my car, right?
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah. No, I had a lot of friends growing up who lived in houses like that, and it was always incomprehensible for me. It was like, you live like this, motherfucker. Jeez. No, I mean, sure. I mean, but that's also. I mean, it wasn't really a disparaging. It's just weird because
I'm confirming that I understand exactly what you mean.
Yeah, but it's like when you're used to something else. I mean, you're used to the thing that you have grown up in, and when you're grown up in a way that isn't like that, and you don't move in that sort of spaces, when you come into them, you can see they feel wrong to you. It's like, okay, this is this, how does this work? Your kitchen is
Right.
small. Okay, you have a dining room then. Oh no, you don't. You have a huge, TV room with like 15 sofas in. Okay.
Yeah.
What's going on here?
Yeah.
So we're getting at here. It's like it's the
Yeah,
technology
the house,
is not
the house I live
for
in now
purpose.
was like that when we moved in, but then we,
Yeah.
moved a few or knocked down one wall and moved another, and basically flipped that, right? So the kitchen in the dining area is a lot larger than it used to be.
Yeah. I mean, you try to make it fit for purpose because the previous iteration really wasn't. It
Yes.
was made, the frame, the spaces were designed to do something completely different, and
Yeah.
and since most people who live like that won't even think of, oh, this isn't really working. Let's just knock down like 5 of these walls because none of them are load bearing anyway, and
Yeah.
just have a think of how we should distribute things so that we can live better. They would just they will most people will just have a look at, oh, this is kind of nice, and then they will adapt
Yeah, well,
to
we're
the
back
spaces.
to the heuristic sort of is like, well, it works all right. So, the
Yeah,
mental
let's
overhead
just do that.
of getting into it is bigger than living with it, at least for now. And then for
Yeah.
now stretches into forever. So
Yeah, that because that's also part of the trap. I mean, because there is a, and I hear this from a lot of people, who are older than us, who are like our parents' generation. When they, I hear it from my aunts and uncles when they talk to my younger cousins, and think like this when it comes to properties specifically. It's like, oh, and then you can just move. You're not gonna live there forever. You just start there, and it's like, and I just go like, yeah, that's the worst advice you could give. But I understand that they gave that advice because they kind of grew up in a different time and they were encouraged to think like that.
and a very different economy as well, right?
Yeah, and a very different economy. But that is
the
also
reason, sort of half the reason I'm living in the house I'm living in now is that it's on a property that would allow us to basically just, keep building on the house as the family expands. If we want to. And I'm not saying it's like based and the correct thing to do, but at least it's something, right?
Yeah, I mean, you do what you can. It's a different, and at least you have a plan.
Yeah.
But the thing here is also that the reality of oh, but we're not gonna live here forever, and when it doesn't work anymore, we'll just move somewhere else. In practice, that doesn't happen. People will stay in those houses until they're way after their retirement age has come and gone, and it's really the last twilight years. Then they might not fuck it, okay,
Yeah.
let's go into an elderly care home or something like that, if it's like really the last years. I mean, but people will stay into their 80s, 90s in those houses. Because people don't move. People hate moving. And I'm sorry, Americans in the chat, but people who like moving, there's something fucking wrong with you.
Yeah, I've moved around a lot more than I ought to, like when I was in university, and I hated it every time, even though it's you moving from basically one small apartment to the next. And
what was the statistic on how many times Americans move
like
during
8
lifetime?
or something?
Was it 12 or something?
8
I think
or 10 or
yeah,
something.
seven
It was
or
insane.
That's crazy. I mean,
I think I can
twice.
I think I can max out on like 4 or 5. And I think that's a lot.
Yeah, I'm planning my third and last. So
yeah, and I'm kind of like, well, if I'm gonna move again, it's gonna be one more time, and then it's gonna be where we're gonna be forever. Either we're gonna stay here forever, or we're gonna like pick our quote unquote forever home or forever property, right?
Yeah.
Um,
But here comes in the other thing that if we extrapolate from what we've been talking here about, especially about the technology of thinking of the house as that you live in as a piece of technology, it's supposed to do something, and the realization that most home, and I've seen fucking houses in England and in the Americas, and let's just say that we we have it quite good up here. We think it's
oh yeah, yeah.
these houses are horrible as we look at them, but then you look at how the Americans live, or
Oh my God.
how the majority of the English live, and it's just like,
Every time
yikes.
I learn something new about sort of how life is quote unquote on the ground in like Britain or America, I just get like a time and time again I'm like I live in a freaking fairy tale country. Like my issues are nowhere near as severe as yours. I'm just trying
No, I
to
mean,
understand what went wrong for you guys so that it doesn't happen here.
yeah, more or less. I mean, so here's the thing, because so what to do then when you realize that you have
Yeah, I
to,
mean
if
we've been
you're
going 1
currently
hour and
renting.
15. We have one more thing. Sorry, I just want to before you starting. We have one more thing about grilling. Are we going into that now?
We're just halfway. Okay. Jesus Christ,
I'm
you
not
and
saying
your
we have to
one and
cut
a
it
half
off in
hour.
15 minutes. I'm just saying, we spent quite a bit of time here.
Yeah, we're gonna move out of this just very very soon. The thing here that I'm pointing at is that since you, to reiterate, since you have this kind of problem, that where you're gonna go, you gotta go somewhere. Most of the things that you can go into isn't really really conducive to family life or anything else, because you have to essentially tear it down and start up all back again. And since property prices, at least here in I know I know how your property prices are, and ours aren't much funnier. And let's not even begin with America. Uh, so you're essentially paying out of your ass for something that doesn't work.
Yeah.
And since I've been getting price quotes and stuff on that, like for building my own now, I realized that it's about a third.
Yeah, I mean, building something fresh is a lot cheaper if you can find the property now. I mean,
Yeah, a
the issue
lot. I
is
mean,
killing
it's
your liberal in terms of what that property might be, right? You have to be
yeah,
willing to
and
sacrifice location.
it's also a little bit about it's about handling risk, being
Yeah,
willing to handle risk, because the thing is that a project like that, it, you can never, it's you always think it's gonna be a lot easier than it is, but you're probably also going to misjudge that the things that you're thinking are going to be easy are actually going to be quite tricky. And the
yeah, yeah.
things like, oh, and this feels like overwhelmingly large and over the top, and I don't know how to construct a wall. That's actually really easy, and it's not as hard as you think it is.
Yeah, yeah.
So
No, I've
and
built not load-bearing walls. I'll admit I haven't done that, but I've built non-load-bearing walls, and that's a lot easier than I thought it was.
yeah, and here's
Once you've seen like a bare bones house and seen the journey where it goes from like nothing to a house, it's actually a lot more logical than you would think coming from modernity without ever having seen the inside of a drywall, right?
yeah.
Well, I mean, I would lightly caution the viewers here. I think it is only going to be cheaper than buying a used house if you actually have some experience with building house. I think if you're completely green in this area, I would not advise it. It will probably not be cheaper for you, simply because of the reasons that you mentioned. I mean, you can teach yourself a lot with YouTube videos, but you're going to make mistakes, and there's
Oh
no
no,
like
I was
there's
referring to
no
like seeing
yeah.
it in real life. Yeah.
There's no back
Yeah,
button on
no.
construction, right? There's no like regret action there. If you build something, you built it, and you have to buy new material and have to tear down the other one, and it costs time and money. So
Yeah. No. Also, this is not financial advice.
Yeah.
No,
Don't
but
go out and buy anything.
also realize that I'm saying this, that I have actually built a house before. I mean, it's a summer house, so it's not a cabin. It's a proper summer house, like a timber frame house, but still, so it's not gargantuan, but it's 2 stories, timber house. But so that's why I'm saying, like, if you have never built anything, start with just build a shed. See how it works out for you. Is it still standing? Yeah, the house is still standing. Yeah, it hasn't blown over.
Do we want to go into grilling?
Yeah,
I want to share
we
the
should do
meme.
that.
I want to share the meme. I really like this meme. I haven't seen this before, and I really enjoyed it. So you wanted to use grilling as a bit of a metaphor, but you're also going to teach us how to build a grill. I've been told.
Yeah, and since you're supposed to, you told me you were going to build a grill this summer or next summer. So perhaps we should start there.
I was toying with the idea. Yes, it's probably going to be next summer. But then I told you, I'm also considering one of those like ceramic grills because you can integrate them into like a bit more of like a pit. But that might be cheating.
Yeah, well, but then again, you will be paying like $1,500 for one of those ceramic Japanese eggs. So
they're Swedish. I mean, I suppose that the style is Japanese, but I thought the company was Swedish.
The company who makes them, who sells them around here, is Swedish. So, but they stole the idea from a bunch of Japs.
From the Japanese. So. Glorious Japanese grill folded 1 million times. Yes,
indeed.
I mean, everything from Japan is better to someone. I mean, everything from Japan is better to someone on the right, isn't it?
Yeah, well, considering the amount of of girls friends that come from that country in some sectors.
A Japanese grill, a Japanese wife, watch Japanese shows. Truly
right. And like James Lindsay, play with Japanese swords in Crocs, of course, because he is American.
But yes, I would eventually, regardless, like to get into building my own grill and or wood fire oven. So please go ahead.
Yeah, you can. So for a good grill, you need bricks, as we discussed earlier, and a walrus's Japanese egg grill. It's ceramic, because what you want in a good grill is 2 things. You want heat retention, and you need draft. The problem with most modern grills, the thin sheet metal ones that you have, is of course that thin sheet metal like that does not retain and radiate heat, because you also have to realize that heat reflects, and you need massive structural elements to reflect energy in a good way, and also to get an even temperature, because when you have uneven temperature, your meat is going to suck. And here we have a small sketch that I found on these so-called interwebs to explain the position. Now, this isn't perhaps the best construction as you see here, but rather think of it as a cross-section, because what you really want in a good grill here is that you want to also to get draft, a chimney effect. This is also one of the problems that you see with many, what is plate grills. They aren't deep enough. You have this kind of, they're 2 foot high. The rack that you put the meat on is like 1 foot up from the bottom of it, and the coals are somewhere in between, and it's just a fucking mess. No, I think PewDiePie lives in Japan because of tax reasons and being a massive weeb. I think his girl is French, something like that, aristocrat. In any case, what you want here, I think this picture is kind of good for illustrating the idea is that you want a little bit of height. The coals can be quite far down, so you have the actual grilling surface in a good ergonomic height. But you want at least, I would say, in a good grill, maybe 2 to 3 feet from where the coals are to where the grilling rack or whatever you call it is. And this is because you want the thermal flow to actually have some speed when it comes up, and you want some directionality to it. The thing is, if you think this as a cross section, so it will be closed in the front, is that then you can manage if you put in a small hatch or just a sliding plate, really, so you can get out, you can close off and open for where the coals are. You can manage the amount of airflow that comes into the grill, because it's tight otherwise, but here you have the flow, and it should be underneath the coals. So the plate that the coals are on should have, like, holes in it. Perhaps rather large hole. Some people think it should be like a sieve, but that means that just all the particulates from the coals will clog them up when it starts burning down and setting. So then it will fuck up your airflow. So you should be able to put your little finger through those holes, and it should be quite a lot of them, so that the air comes into the bottom, moves through the
How do you
coal.
regulate the airflow in this configuration if you're making sort of like permanent holes?
No, I mean the holes should be in the plate that holds the coals. So if you
okay, sorry, I misunderstood. Yeah.
G, and then the hatch that opens and shuts should be in the B position underneath the plate that holds the coals.
Yeah,
so
I
the
see.
air goes
Yep.
from in under and then up. Then you can of course have a small hatch, so you can open up where the coals are, so you can rake them out and clean it, so you don't have to shove your entire hand down there. But it should be as tight as you can make it, so it acts like a chimney. So the air comes in is sucked in by the difference in temperature in the bottom, rises through the coals through the chimney effect, so and then blasts upwards. Because then when it has speed, when it moves up, when you have this kind of high grill with the coals low down, that means that you don't get this thing where the smoke goes everywhere, because it doesn't have any velocity. When it has speed, it will go up and then it will go somewhere, so you won't get it in your eyes as much. So it has a different kind of yeah. Hello, JG. Grilling is indeed key to overthrowing the regime. You can't overthrow a regime on an empty stomach. And what else to fill it with? With the delicious grilled meats. Here's the thing. I see someone says something about concrete. No, you should not use concrete, because concrete has shit thermal expansion qualities. You should use brick, and the inner, you can use usual red brick, but don't buy that kind of brick that has holes in it. You want solid bricks, old-timey style bricks that aren't lightened or anything, because once you get holes in them, that's where moisture can pool up, and then if there's still moisture in the structure when you light it for the first time in the spring, the whole thing will explode as gas expansion cracks your grill. Not good. So you want solid blocks. And if you want to, you can use thermal blocks for the inner lining, just where the coals are and about 2 feet up, just to really get it going, because that will reflect more thermal energy upwards. Yeah.
Very good.
How do you light? How do you light this thing? Well, as I said, you need 2 hatches. One hatch is in the bottom, in the B section, and one hatch at the G section. I mean,
yeah.
And I
so you put the coals in at the G sections, then you light the coals. It's the same as any other grill, right?
Yeah, it's yeah. I mean, you light the coals. How hard can it be? The thing is that I say
that's how
half,
you
but
grill, right?
Yeah, but you can just use, a piece of sheet metal that it has two things that holds it in place. It doesn't need to be something fancy. Just so that
I mean, getting
you
like a latch is something that you can probably get at a hardware
yeah,
store.
problem something like that, and just
Like a
because
pre-made
the
one.
idea is that you want to be able to regulate the airflow.
Exactly.
Uh,
So, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, the thing is though that you can use light concrete like masonry blocks, but then it must if you want to be have a integrated with a bench or something like that. But that part can't be in direct contact with the furnace. So you can make the outlining structure from cinder blocks or something like that, but then you have to line that so that the actual grill, the inner part, must be clay brick. Or we are back at stage one where everything, you get gas expansion within the blocks and it goes, and well, then you have problems. So you can do that, but because then it's less messy than working with something like this. But this is a good basic structure. I mean, and you can use concrete blocks pre-molded for the base, or if you want to set your own thing. So
and
that's not really a problem
you can
because
get those different sort of. I mean, if you want to do like different things with the grill, with the food, you can add like different grates and like blockers for smoking and stuff like that on the D section, for example, as well.
Yeah, sure.
So it's a very versatile structure, really.
Yeah, because you can put in a a middle layer, and since it has this, because think a brick is about a hand's. Say
Sorry,
the
Jay
width
Green
of your
River
hand.
joined a bit late. This is a cross section. It should
Yeah,
not have one side open.
No, so some people do it like this, and then it doesn't work. I've seen examples of people doing this exact
You just
thing.
built a fire. Yeah.
Yeah, congratulations. I mean, you smoked yourself. That's what's gonna happen. So, yeah.
It's a controlled fire, but it's just a fire.
Yeah. But the thing is that since you have this kind of tier structure as well, as you said, you can put a lid on it and use it as a smoker as well. Well, as long as you could put a hole in that in that lid.
Well, I mean, make a lid, put a hole in it, put like a blocker plate on D, and you have a smoker, right?
Yeah. And just put you put in a like a piece of sheet metal, really 1 millimeter, 1 or 2
whatever,
millimeter
something that blocks the direct heat,
on the D level, and then you put down like wood chips on it, so you get the smoke dispension, but none of the direct flame.
Yeah.
Yes, JG, cool. It is kind of like a tower.
Yes.
A tower.
So this is the basics of how anyone, with sufficient property space and some money can build a grill that can last you quite a long time. Yeah, but I see in your notes here, sorry, you probably have more on this, or you have a lot more in your notes about sort of, should I call it the metaphysics of grilling?
Yeah, well, you fucking rushed me, so I thought we would transition from, but we're taking it a little bit backwards here. But
yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, we'll. This is also a thing about hobbies. People, especially men, should have hobbies. I'm not sure about if women should have hobbies. I think their hobbies are like cleaning and stuff like that. So perhaps they also should have them, but that's not a problem of ours. And all good hobbies, and if you say like, oh, I play video games, that's not a hobby. That's just wasting time and distracting yourself. That's a distraction. Yeah, no, I mean, a hobby is something that you do with your hands. Essentially, it's it's the first step of becoming an artisan of something, because you do it because you like it, because it's fun, but it's really low level crafts. But in the modern world, since there are no way of becoming an artisan, so you have to start with hobby. It's like, if you want to change yourself into something that doesn't exist, say a traditional person or a person of anything really, you have to start it thinking, you have to start by LARPing, because, and I know that has bad connotations, but that's actually how you build a habit. You don't have it, no one
at some
around,
point you have to do it
you can
and fail.
yeah,
right?
there's no one around that can help you do this, so you have to do it on yourself. And how do you teach yourself to do something like this? Well, you LARP that you do it. That's how you start. Essentially, you have to gaslit yourself into saying, I can do this, and not only I do it, I'm going to do it. And then after a while, you will find that, yeah, actually I can do that. But it's the it gets a bad rep, but you have to do that to overcome this kind of massive modern world complex bearing down on you, saying, no, you can't do that, that's not allowed. You're supposed to lay on your back and watch TV. That's good for you. So yeah, that's kind of how you have to get into something like that.
Carl Habermas, recent guest on the show, says, I would like to start a hobby of constructing small structures like sheds and deckings. Yes, that's been one of those things for me, where I've gone from, the thing with home ownership is all of those things have gone from like, I have no idea how to do this, to, well, it wasn't so bad, really, once you get going. And then
Yeah.
after a while, you get enough experience under your belt that you can sort of infer how to do something that you haven't done before, but based on the experience you have with that other thing, you can probably guess how that goes. And, most of the time you're right, which is a very good feeling. It's a very good feeling of like mastery of your own domain, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, that is also what I said, that you have to start small, and you have to have at least try to have some form of a systematic approach. And you can't start at 100. You have to start at 1, or perhaps 2. If you have seen someone do 1, then perhaps you can, and you're feeling adventurous, you can start at 2 and see how it goes. But fake it till you grill it. Yeah, really. But that's as you said, doing a little bit of decking, and perhaps after that going after doing a small shed to, I don't know, keep stuff in. You probably have a wheelbarrow that shouldn't be standing outside in the rain, and you don't really have place for it in your garage. Well, let's just try. So start building a small shed to keep your wheelbarrow and a couple of spades or something in, whatever. I mean, that will essentially teach you the basic moves of constructing, a structure, because you need to make sure that
a lot of the same principles in a shed and a house, but I mean, it's scaled up and there's a bit of different regulation, but the basic principles are the same.
Yeah. I mean, and also since load bearing and stuff like that isn't a linear function, but it scales. So that means that you have to have different approaches at different stages, at different weights and stuff like that. So, but the basic idea is essentially the same. I mean, you cross brace in the same way, and all. Well, with small structures, you can cheat in a way that you can't with big ones, but I mean, once you have, say that you have built a deck, and then you're familiarized with the tools, you're familiarized with what you can and can't do with them, more or less. And well, you know your way around a circle saw, and you know what a leveling plane is, so that things doesn't go rolling down to one side of the deck and stuff like that.
And you've set concrete, probably, right?
Yeah, if you haven't done a full plate, then perhaps you have made plinths or something like that.
Yeah.
Or,
to hold up parts of the decking.
Yeah, and the principles behind that is more those actually scale, so it's the same thing more or less. Again, weight is a thing, but that more making the casting frames more solid. It's not rocket science in any way, shape, or form.
Your point is, you know, you have to start somewhere and you have to try to do something, right?
Yeah, because I see this a lot of within the spaces of the online, right? A lot of people, you know, it's a lot of, you know, trying to run before you can walk. It has to happen now, at once. Not in all places, but you know, you see a lot of it, and you also see a lot of black pilling, as they say, when things doesn't work out. And you know, you don't want it to be too harsh on people, but it's like, you know, what did you expect?
Yeah. Jay
and I think
Greenriver was here earlier, and you know, we had him on talking about Beowulf, his latest project, and that wasn't made in a day, right? It was made through many years of trial and error.
Yeah, I mean, and especially since by the very nature of such things, you have to you are working with modest means. You don't have infinite resources, so that means that it will take things will take time, and you have to find. Yeah,
I did
nah,
10
it's so
sit-ups
over.
and I don't have a
So
six-pack.
over.
It's over. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they find something new, and then they're back. So it's like this, and this is also kind of a thing of the metaphysics of how to grill, is to really try to detach yourself from that kind of drama, because the only thing that it serves is the people who are driving it. I mean, you as a passive consumer of the drama, the only thing that it steals from you is time, energy, and attention. You get nothing back. This might be something for you, Lodic, considering your latest escapades and getting blocked by James Lindsay.
Yes.
Now I know, yeah, you love the shadow boxing with the libs, but yeah, you know, there's such a thing as overindulgence.
I don't feel like it's shadow boxing. I'm just sort of bullying. I think. I think like Dave, the distributist, is actually doing shadow boxing. He's doing, you know, good.
Yeah, he's
faith
actually
kind of
willing to go on
just,
debates with them. That's true. Yeah.
I'm just trying to make memes
You're
to
just
get more Twitter
shouting
followers,
from
honestly.
the stands. Yeah. Like heckling.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing actually. Like they're setting up a show in the middle of there, and I'm in the back like yelling "Free Bird" over and over again, just interrupting their stand-up show.
Yeah, well, I guess that's a little bit more based. I actually haven't been. I just seen that you've been retweeting and doing stuff like that. So, yeah, to each their own.
Carl Habermas says, "I'm guilty of impatience and catastrophizing, something I have to work on." Well, I mean, it's good that you know, but knowing that, and it's one of those things where having hobbies actually, if it's real hobbies, right? You said like video games aren't real hobbies. If it's real hobbies, you'll run up to your own, you know, like you'll hit the wall sort of your own faults quite quickly. And then when you overcome those, it feels a lot better without sounding too self-helpy. It's a very good way to grow.
Yeah. And the thing is also with that is that you get something out of it, because by
something
hobby,
physical, yeah.
Yeah, you also not only, I mean, most hobbies. I mean, say that you get into I do some kind of crafts. You get something out of it because you made something. The first stuff that you make is gonna be shit. The second one is gonna be a little bit less shit, but it's gonna be shit anyway. But if you keep at it after a while, and you know, if you have, you know, just a little bit of talent, you're actually going to get something out of it that you can use. Perhaps something that is potentially very useful. So that's also, it's not just psychic profits, it's actually real tangible material profits that can come from this, because well, you're engaging with the real, not with the ephemeral. So there's also that. So this is not just self-help. Oh, you will feel better. No, you will actually get a grill as well that you can use.
And then get fat, and then you have to go to the gym. So then it works.
Yeah, I mean, then again, I have never seen a person get fat from eating too much grilled meat. I don't think it's physically possible.
You don't watch enough American barbecue YouTube. Let me tell you that.
Yeah, right.
That's probably all the coleslaw and the taters and the.
yeah. And I seen their barbecue sauces that are like 800% molasses and then cornstarch.
It's just corn syrup and like sriracha. That's You buy my ass blaster sauce and it's just it's corn syrup and some pepper.
Yeah, and it's like, what's this steak? Yeah, it's 50% meat and 50% of that horrible corn syrup slob that they put on it.
Yeah, and then a little bit of brown sugar and like 4 sticks of butter on top of some ribs. Yeah.
Yeah, but then it should also be said. I mean, the thing with hobbies is also that a hobby is something that you do because you are locked in quite often. Because if you are not locked in, then it's not really a hobby. Then it's work, but it's work that you like doing. I mean, if you have a house and a property or whatever, then you don't sit at home whittling little spoons and garden gnomes, because then you have you have like the bracing around a window needs changing, so you have to do woodwork for that, then it has to be painted and put up, and you have to do stuff like that. Even if it's fun doing, it's not really a hobby, it's work. So by its very nature, hobbies is something that you indulge in when you don't have anything better to do, or that you can't do anything else.
Yeah, we're getting into like Evola is a work versus action, really.
Yeah. Very, very much so. So it is a bit of a surrogate action, more or less, because you can't do the real action for whatever reason. So you do it small scale. You're mimicking the real thing at a lower level. So that's
you're
really
grasping at a bit of a straw, I guess, trying to get a crumb of the real thing.
Yeah, you're trying to get something that you currently can't grasp, but so you're getting the next best thing that you can get a hold of.
Lavonica says, I'm building a boat. I have fiberglass hull from 67 and a motor that looks like it hasn't been turned on in 20 years. It's a start. Yeah, good for you, man.
Yeah,
go out and do it.
Absolutely.
I guess.
Once you've done that, you have a functioning boat. Or a trip to the to the boat dealer to buy a newer boat that perhaps works.
Sensible Esocentrist says we had the metaphysics of the fridge, now we have the metaphysics of the grill. Yeah, exactly. And the metaphysics of the fridge inform how you look at the metaphysics of the grill, right?
Yeah. Do you build your own grill from scratch? Or do you go and buy a cheap sheet metal grill?
Yeah.
That will break and you can use it for a season, and then it's just going to be rusted scrap by next spring.
Yeah, this stream, I like to go on record and say that this stream has been very anti-Hank Hill. There's a lot of propane hate here on the panel tonight.
Well, we have been. Well, that brings us to the last point that I said. That was Death of America. So then chat has covered that one. That's good.
Yeah, they have. Millions must grill.
Yeah.
All right. I think on that note, unless you have anything more you would like to say, it's time to end it for tonight.
No, I think that with the propane hate, we have come full circle.
Yeah, probably. We started with Anglo hate and we ended with Anglo hate. And it's nice. We've been having a lot of Anglos as guests. Very nice people, very good talks. But it's sometimes we have to course correct.
Yes, and now everyone feels better, and all things are well in the world again. For a small while.
Everything is okay. No one is
Then
mad.
tomorrow
on
we
the
will
internet
all open
tonight.
Twitter. And tomorrow we'll all open Twitter, and Logic Path will have retweeted something via shadow account that James Lindsay have said again. And
you know what, Logic Path isn't as bad. The worst sort of insidious character on my timeline is probably Jay Burden, because he retweets like actual leftists.
Yeah,
but like he retweets them like ironically. Yeah, but he retweets them like ironically.
It's like,
because they'll say something absolutely insane, and he'll retweet it like, "Yeah, you go, Queen," and it's he's doing it just to mock them because he wants every one of his friends to see it.
Yeah, it's I guess it's something on the level, where he saw it, so now we also have to see it.
Yeah. All right, Logic Path, socials and links.
Yeah. Same socials as every time. Read praxarchy.com. Follow me on Twitter.
Is there anything cool new on Praxarchy that people should go read?
It's been a little bit slow lately, but we have Wagner Day coming up.
Yes.
With arranged by Nathan Hood, so we're going to have a page for Wagner Day to try as a sort of a spot to collect all of the submissions and the content that's created. So
very good.
Yeah, follow up on that. I think it's going to be on the 27th. So yeah, in 2 days.
Very good. And then of course Logic Path on Twitter, Leo Borealis.
Yeah, well, I guess I also have a Twitter. It's mostly cats.
It is mostly cats, and then sometimes pictures of like axes and.
Yeah, and forest pictures. It's mostly that. It's a photograph. It's a photograph account sometimes. I don't know.
And then of course you can follow me on Twitter as well for random thoughts and observations. I see that like half of the people who watch this are not subscribed nowadays, so please consider hitting the subscribe button, hitting the like if you enjoyed the stream, commenting for the algorithm gods, etc. Yeah. In the link down below there should be a link to our Matrix channel, which a lot of people who either hang out here in chat or who have appeared on stream usually show up in the chat there throughout the week. And also considering that in a couple of weeks we're having our annual meme review of the meme channel, if you would like to submit anything that should be considered for the meme review, you would have to join that Matrix channel. I think that's everything. And with that, I think I will wish you all a good evening and a nice weekend, and we'll see you all next week when we have Cows on. I think I haven't gotten that confirmed yet, so I can't promise that yet. It might be in a couple of weeks, but we will see you next week with something, and until then, have a good time. Bye bye.